So, Twilight, I began sweetly. What are you doing next Saturday? The bookworm didn't even look up from her book, her hand taking notes without even glancing over to the pages of her notebook. Her pen scratching on the paper was the only sound in the library aside from the hiss of the air system. From the look in her eyes, I could tell she hadn't heard me. I frowned a little and leaned forward. Twilight, I asked. Still no response. Twilight! The girl jerked upright, pulled back to reality, fumbling with her pen in her surprise. Huh? What? I smiled and leaned against the table she was seated at. I asked you a question, Sunshine, I remarked, using the name she'd chosen in Equestria to help determine which Twilight we had been talking to her about. You doing anything next Saturday night? She smiled and blushed a little at the pet name.
Not that I know of, Sunset. I'd planned on maybe watching some TV with Shining when he and Cadence come over.
I tilted an eyebrow at her in surprise. Oh, I asked, are you sure there isn't something you'd rather do instead? She shook her head.
I love spending time with them, Sunny. Why? Is there something going on next weekend?
I shrugged and swung down into a chair next to her. Nothing overly important. I drawled with exaggerated calm. Just the fall formal, and I was hoping to take my girlfriend to it. Seems she's already got a date, though. I sighed. Passed over by a crime drama. Twilight giggled and reached over to squeeze my hand.
No need to rub it in, Sunny. If you want to go to the dance, then I'm sure Shining will understand.
Then her eyes shot open.
Oh no, that means I need to get a dress and figure out makeup
And Rarity has already agreed to help us if we needed it. I smiled. I lifted her hand and kissed it. She's got some designs for us to look at later. Twilight was still in panic mode.
But we have to find a way to get to the dance, and tickets, and...
She looked close to hyperventilating. I reached out and poked her in the nose, and she scrunched up her face, reaching up to rub her nose. Tickets bought, my car is cleaned out. Wipe that smile off your face, and all that's left is getting dresses. I grinned. So, you free?
Of course.
Great. I beamed at her as I moved in to kiss her. It's a date. She smiled and put her forehead on mine.
Our first official one, if you don't count the nights out with the girls.
Sounds good to me. I glanced at my watch and stood up. I've got to get going. I've got to meet Fluttershy to help set up for the Shelter Silent auction tonight. See you later tonight at Rarity's for the sleepover. She nodded and I kept my posture relaxed until the door to the library clicked shut. Our first date, I whispered, feeling my heart pounding. I smiled as plans began to swirl in my head and I couldn't keep the bounce out of my step as I left to go meet Fluttershy. Oh! I squeaked as Rarity pinned up one side of my skirt, poking me again. Oh, hush up! She grumped, her hair laying somewhat limp compared to her usual curls. She had a pearl-white kerchief holding her bangs out of her face and her eyes were showing the signs of lack of sleep. A small handkerchief peeked out of the sleeve of her sweater.
It doesn't hurt that bad, darling.
I blew my bangs out of my face again, wishing I had brought a few bobby pins to tame my hair. No, but you've poked me in the hip 5 times now, Rarity. I sighed. I reached down and put my hand over hers. You're exhausted. You've got a week to work on these dresses. Take a day and get over this cold. Rarity took the handkerchief from her sleeve and blew her nose.
No,
she said, dropping the kerchief into a laundry basket and pulled another from a nearby drawer.
I believe I can power through. Your dress is so near to being fitted. I just need to tuck the pleats a little more
And you recently bought a mannequin that adjusts. I turned her face to mine, giving her a serious look. Get some rest. The fashionista looked like she was going to press the issue, but a trio of sneezes broke forth, stalling anything she may have been prepared to say.
Maybe you're right, Sunset,
she said as she sat in a nearby chair.
Perhaps a good night's sleep will most beneficial, but I still have to work on Twilight's dress and my own.
I raised an eyebrow as I gathered up my street clothes and moved towards the partition changing room. You seriously expect me to believe you don't already have your dress ready?
Well, no.
Rarity sniffed, though I wasn't sure if it was indignation or the cold.
I happen to have mine done save for some accents that I'm still waiting on to arrive, but it's the principle of the thing.
I shimmied into my jeans, and if you're so tired you can't sew a straight seam. Silence reigned as I pulled on my jacket. I stepped out and saw a look of complete horror on Rarity's face. I gingerly reached out and touched her shoulder. Rarity?
Crooked seams,
she whispered, and I twitching before shaking her head.
How horrible. These are beautiful, Rose.
Fluttershy breathed as she took up a corsage made of a pink lily and smelling it. I smiled as I poked through a set of flowers. Rosalix's family always had a great selection of flowers for any occasion, and today was no exception. I picked up a paired sprig of lavender and a small orchid-looking bloom. I wasn't sure what color Twilight's dress was going to be. Rarity insisted on it being a surprise, so I decided to go with something simple.
So, who are you going to the fall formal with, Fluttershy?
I heard the shy girl chuckle a little.
Oh, I'm just going with the girls. Sunset and Twilight are the only two that are paired up.
Daisy looked like she was going to pass out at this. How horrible!
Not really.
Fluttershy replied, placing the corsage on the counter where Lily Valley rang up her purchase.
I get to go at dinner with my best friends and enjoy dance for the first time since freshman year's spring fling.
You mean you didn't have fun at last year's formal?
Oh no, I did. But you have to admit, the fall formal had more than a few rough spots.
I winced as I remembered what she meant. There isn't a lot of fun in being locked in a short fight with a she-demon. And the spring fling had been cancelled due to budget shortfalls. Following the Battle of the Bands, I lifted the corsage I had picked up and sniffed it. Thoughts of Twilight chasing away the lingering doubts that still cropped up from time to time.
Ready to check out?
Oh, yes. I placed the flyer down and dug out a few bills out of my wallet as Lily placed the corsage into a box to protect its water bulb. I felt my phone vibrate, a piano riff letting me know that it was Twilight texting me. It was short, only a few words, but it put a smile on my face.
Can't wait for tomorrow, I'm so excited. I love you.
I smiled all the way to the car, tapping out a short reply, love you too. I'll be swinging by around 4.